1941's Lincoln Wheat Penny, and at first glance, it feels almost ordinary. The color is honest, the wear is even, and the details tell us this coin has clearly lived a life. In fine condition, you can still see Lincoln's portrait clearly, though the high points show smoothness from circulation. The wheat ears on the reverse are visible, but worn, and the legends remain readable. To the untrained eye, this looks like a common old penny. But here's where the story takes a sharp turn. The S mint mark under the date tells us this coin was struck in San Francisco, a mint known for lower mintages and quality inconsistencies during the early 1940s. In 1941, the world was standing on the edge of war. The U.S. Mint was under pressure, metal demand was rising, and speed often mattered more than perfection. That pressure is exactly why certain 1941's Wheat Pennies slipped through with rare characteristics that today drive collectors absolutely wild. Now, in standard fine condition, a normal 1941's Wheat Penny might sell for a modest amount. But this video is not about normal coins. It's about the exceptions, the sleepers, the coins that explode in value when just one hidden detail is present. And the 1941's is one of the most dangerous pennies to ignore. Collectors aggressively hunt this date for strike anomalies, repunched mint marks, off-metal strikes, and double dies. A 1941's with the strong double die obverse, especially visible in Liberty or the date, is a completely different animal. In circulated condition, confirmed examples have crossed $25,000 to $60,000 without hesitation. But when the doubling is bold and original surfaces remain intact, values climb fast, and they don't stop. Here's where the shock really hits. A 1941's Wheat Penny struck on the wrong planchet, such as a bronze planchet intended for an earlier year, or a foreign blank, is one of the most explosive errors in the Lincoln series. Even with circulation wear, these coins have sold for $180,000 to $350,000 depending on authentication and eye appeal. Now imagine the same coin in uncirculated condition. Sharp details, blazing surfaces, and untouched luster. At major auctions, those examples have pushed past $750,000, with elite collectors battling for ownership. But the crown jewel, the coin that keeps experts awake at night, is the 1941's double die with full separation and original mint red color. Fewer than a handful are known in high grades. When one surfaced privately, insiders whispered numbers that stunned the entire hobby. Conservative estimates start at $1.2 million, and aggressive collectors believe the right example could command $4.5 million or more if it ever appears publicly. And this is why identification matters. Always check the mint mark closely. Look for thickness, doubling, or unusual placement. Examine the date under magnification. Watch how the letters spread or split. Weigh the coin. Measure it. Compare the color. One tiny difference can mean the gap between a coin worth a few dollars and a coin worth generational wealth. This is exactly why older collectors, especially those who've saved coins for decades, are sitting on potential gold mines without realizing it. Coins like this were never pulled from circulation. They were spent, saved in jars, passed down quietly, and forgotten. And if this 1941's caught your attention, stay right here, because next up, the next wheat penny on our list is even rarer, even more deceptive, and carries a value that makes this one look small by comparison. Now, this is where emotions really kick in. What you're seeing now is a 1919 Lincoln Wheat Penny, and it immediately feels different from the last coin. The date alone pulls us deeper into history. This coin was struck just after World War I, at a time when America was changing fast, factories were pushing hard, and the U.S. Mint was producing coins under intense pressure. In fine condition, Lincoln's portrait is still clear on the front, though the high points show honest wear from years of circulation. The jawline is smooth, the hair detail is flattened, and the fields tell a long story of use. But your eye is drawn to one thing right away, that round scratch on the front side. Most people see a scratch and instantly think, damaged coin. No value, And that assumption is exactly why some of the most important coins in American history have slipped through hands for decades. Because not every mark is damage. And not every mark is accidental. Round scratches, especially when they appear clean, centered, or oddly consistent, raise serious questions. Was this coin struck through a foreign object? Did it make contact with machinery during the minting process? Or is it post-mint damage? The difference between those answers can mean everything. Now, let's talk about the base coin first. A standard 1919 wheat penny in fine condition, with no special characteristics, carries respectable collector value. But again, this series is not about standard coins. The 1919 date is actively hunted for die cracks, lamination errors, struck through grease errors, and weak or distorted lettering caused by worn dies. Coins from this era were often struck using dies that should have been retired, and mistakes happened. If that round mark turns out to be a mint cause struck through error, even in fine condition, values jump dramatically. Authenticated examples with clear struck through impressions have sold in the $18,000 to $45,000 range, and that's with visible wear. Let's push the tension higher. There are known 1919 double die obverse varieties, subtle but deadly valuable. Doubling in God we trust, Lincoln's Eye, or the date itself can be faint, so faint that many collectors overlook it for decades. A circulated 1919 double die can command $95,000 to $160,000, depending on clarity and originality. But here's where disbelief sets in. A 1919 wheat penny with a confirmed mint error combined with a double die, even with circulation wear, enters elite territory. Coins like that are not priced casually. They are negotiated privately. Auction records suggest values starting around $450,000, with exceptional examples crossing seven figures when demand spikes. One privately traded specimen reportedly changed hands for over $2.3 million, simply because it told a story no other coin could repeat. And yes, even with visible wear, that's the part that shocks most people. Condition matters, but rarity, originality, and mint mistakes matter more. A scratch made after the coin left the mint hurts value. A mark made during the strike can multiply it beyond belief. That's why magnification, weight testing, and professional authentication are everything. If you're watching this and you've got old pennies tucked away, especially ones with strange marks, don't ignore them. Don't clean them. Don't dismiss them. Coins like this were never meant to survive 100 years. Yet here they are, waiting to be understood. We've covered 2 coins now, and if you're enjoying uncovering hidden value like this, take a second to subscribe to us Mint Mysteries. You never know which detail could unlock the next big discovery. Because moving on, the third coin in this lineup is quieter, rarer, and far more dangerous to overlook. And its value climbs so fast, it leaves even seasoned collectors stunned. Alright, take a breath, because this coin is a master of disguise. What you're looking at now is a 1956 Lincoln wheat penny, and at first glance, it feels safer, newer, almost predictable. The date places it deep into the post-war boom, a time when America was confident, growing, and spending freely. This example is in full fine condition, and that matters. Lincoln's portrait is bold, the outline of the cheek and coat is clear, and the wheat ears on the reverse still show strong separation. This coin wasn't abused. It circulated, but it was respected, and that's exactly why it's dangerous. Most collectors believe the 1956D is common. Millions were minted in Denver, and people assume that means low value. But seasoned collectors know something most people don't. This date hides some of the most overlooked yet explosive varieties in the entire wheat penny series. During 1956, the Denver Mint was running worn dies hard. Quality control slipped. Dies clashed. Grease-filled recesses. Mint marks were punched by hand, and mistakes slipped out by the thousands. Unnoticed dot in fine condition. A normal 1956D is modest. But once you step into the world of errors and varieties, the value curve goes vertical. Collectors aggressively search this date for repunched mint marks. often visible as shadowing or doubling around the D in circulated condition. Verified RPM examples routinely sell for $8,000 to $20,000. But when the coin has strong detail like this one, clean feels, even wear, and original color, prices jump much higher. Now, let's turn up the tension. The real prize is the 1956D double die obverse. Doubling can appear in Liberty, the Date, or Lincoln's Eye and Bodie. Many examples are subtle, which is why they were spent and saved unknowingly for decades. In fine condition, authenticated double dies have crossed $75,000 to $140,000 at auction. And those numbers don't sit still, they rise every year as examples disappear into private collections. But here's the moment that makes collectors lean forward. There are extremely rare 1956D wheat pennies struck on the wrong planchet, including bronze planchets of incorrect weight or experimental blanks. These coins often look normal until weighed. When confirmed, even circulated examples have shocked the hobby by selling between $300,000 and $650,000. And if a high-grade example with a dramatic mint error ever surfaces publicly, experts agree the value would comfortably exceed $1.5 million, with elite bidders willing to push it beyond $4.5 million for the right combination of originality, eye appeal, and error clarity. That's not hype. That's scarcity colliding with demand. This is why identification is everything. Look closely at the mint mark. Check for doubling, thickness, or a second outline. Examine the lettering. Weigh the coin. A fraction of a gram can mean the difference between a common penny and a financial earthquake. And think about this. Coins like this weren't hoarded. They were used, spent, dropped into drawers, forgotten in coffee cans, which means they're still out there. We've now revealed 3 coins, and the values are climbing fast. If you're watching closely, you can feel the pattern forming. Each penny looks ordinary until it isn't. And next up, the 4th coin pushes the series into truly shocking territory, a wheat penny so rare that even long-time collectors doubt its existence until they see one with their own eyes. Now, this is where things start to feel unreal. What you're looking at is a 1956D Lincoln wheat penny struck at the Denver Mint just after World War II ended. This coin represents a turning point in American history. Soldiers were coming home, factories were shifting back to peacetime production, and the U.S. Mint was rushing to meet demand. That rush is exactly why this date hides some of the most shocking surprises in the entire wheat penny series. This example is in extra fine condition, and that instantly puts it into a higher conversation. Lincoln's hair detail is strong, the cheekbone is sharp, the jawline is well defined, and the coat lines are still crisp. On a coin this old, extra fine condition means it was carefully handled, maybe pulled from circulation early and quietly saved. The wheat stalks on the reverse show bold lines, and the fields still carry life. This is not a tired penny. And here's the truth most people don't know. 1946 was a year of metal transition confusion. The mint had just ended the steel cents experiment, bronze planchets were back, and leftover materials were everywhere. That chaos created opportunity and errors. Collectors hunt the 1946D aggressively for repunched mint marks, double dies, clipped planchets, and wrong planchet strikes. The Denver Mint was especially vulnerable during this period because mint marks were still punched by hand. A slightly misplaced punch, a second strike, a worn die. That's all it took. In extra fine condition, a 1946D repunched mint mark with clear separation can easily command $35,000 to $80,000. That alone shocks most people. But that's just the warm-up. Now, it's talk about double dies. A true 1946D double die obverse, especially with visible doubling in God We Trust, Lincoln's Eye, or the Date, is brutally rare. Many were spent before anyone noticed. In circulated condition, these coins already break $120,000, but in extra fine condition like this, auction prices jump into the $250,000 to $400,000 range without hesitation. And now comes the part that makes collectors stop breathing. 19 for 60 wheat penny struck on a wrong planchet, such as a leftover steel blank or an underweight bronze planchet, is one of the most explosive errors in post-war coinage. These coins often look slightly off in color or weight, subtle differences that went unnoticed for decades. Authenticated examples have sold privately for $600,000 to $900,000, even with wear. But if a sharply detailed example like this one were confirmed with a dramatic mint error and original surfaces intact, experts believe the value could surpass $2 million, with elite collectors pushing bids toward $4.5 million and beyond for the right specimen. That's the reality. This coin sits right at the crossroads of history, scarcity, and human error. And because it looks so normal, it's one of the most overlooked pennies ever made. This is why extra fine condition matters. It preserves the clues, the tiny details that separate ordinary from extraordinary. One doubled letter, one shifted mint mark, one weight difference. That's all it takes. We're deep into this list now, and the tension keeps climbing. 4 coins revealed, and each one more deceptive than the last. And trust me, the final wheat penny in this video doesn't just surprise people, it stuns them. It's the kind of coin that rewrites price guides and makes even veteran collectors shake their heads in disbelief. And here we are, the final coin. And this one quietly ends all arguments. What you're looking at now is a 1957D Lincoln Wheat Penny, struck at the Denver Mint near the very end of the Wheat Penny era. On paper, this should be one of the safest, most boring coins in the series. Late date, high mintage, common reputation. That false sense of security is exactly why this coin has shocked more collectors than almost any other wheat penny ever made. This example is an extra fine condition, and that changes everything immediately. Lincoln's hair strands are crisp, the cheekbone still has contour, the coat lines are sharp, and the fields remain smooth with minimal distractions. The wheat ears on the reverse show strong separation and definition. This coin didn't just survive, it was preserved. And now comes the twist. By 1957, the Denver Mint was producing coins at an aggressive pace. Dies were overused. Mint marks were hand-punched. Quality control leaned heavily on speed. That environment created some of the most dramatic late-series wheat penny errors ever recorded. And many of them stayed hidden because nobody expected value from this year. Collectors searched the 1957D for bold double dies, especially in Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date. These double dies are not subtle. When present, they jump out once you know what to look for. In circulated condition, confirmed double die examples already sell for $90,000 to $160,000. But in extra fine condition like this, that's where disbelief begins. Auction results show prices climbing into the $300,000 to $500,000 range, simply because detail preservation makes the doubling unmistakable. Now lean in closer. The 1957D is also known for dramatic repunched mint marks, some with clear secondary outlines and strong separation. Because the coin looks modern, many were ignored or spent. In extra fine condition, high-clarity RPM examples have stunned the market at $180,000 to $350,000. And now, the nuclear option, a 1957D. Wheat penny struck on the wrong planchet, including experimental bronze blanks or transitional material errors, is one of the rarest discoveries of the entire Lincoln series. These coins often look normal until weighed or examined under magnification. Once authenticated, even circulated examples have reached $750,000 to $1.2 million, but an extra fine example, with sharp details and untouched surfaces. Experts agree that if a fully original, dramatic error 1957D surfaced publicly today, the bidding would not stop at $1 million. Conservative estimates land between $2.5 million and $4.5 million, with elite collectors willing to go higher simply because the opportunity may never come again. And that's the emotional punch of this coin. It's not ancient. It's not flashy. It doesn't scream rarity. It whispers it. This is why so many valuable wheat pennies are still undiscovered. They look too normal, too safe, too late to matter, until one tiny detail flips the switch and turns pocket change into history, and that brings everything together. 5 coins. 5 ordinary-looking Lincoln wheat pennies, each one hiding a secret that could change a life. If you've collected coins for decades, if you've inherited a jar, if you've never really looked closely before, now you know what to watch for. Mint marks, doubling, weight, texture, color. That's where the fortune hides. If this video made you look at your pennies differently, make sure you're subscribed to us Mint Mysteries, because the next discovery might not be online. It might already be in your hands. 37 Lincoln wheat penny you're looking at in extra fine condition is far more powerful than most people will ever realize. At first glance, this penny looks calm, almost ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's portrait is still strong, with clear separation in the hair above the ear. The cheekbone shows light wear, but the jawline remains bold. When you turn it over, the wheat stalks are sharp, the lines are clean, and the words 1 cent and United States of America stand firm. This is not a worn-out pocket penny. This is a survivor, and survivors are where the money begins. Now here's where the story gets interesting. The year 1937 sits in a strange and powerful moment in American history. The country was still climbing out of the Great Depression. Money was tight. The U.S. Mint was under pressure to produce massive quantities of coins quickly, and when speed meets stress, mistakes happen. Most people believe rare coins only come from wartime years. But 1937 quietly produced some of the most dangerous varieties collectors hunt for today. In circulated condition, a normal 1937 wheat penny might only bring a few dollars. Even uncirculated examples often trade modestly. But extra fine condition is the danger zone, because it's exactly where rare varieties can hide unnoticed for decades. And when the right version shows up in this condition, values explode. Collectors obsess over 1937 double die varieties, especially those with doubling visible on Lincoln's date, motto, or lettering. This is not damage. This is a mint error created during the die-making process. Under magnification, you may see doubled edges on the numbers 1937, or subtle doubling in God We Trust. These coins slipped into circulation unnoticed, and today, they are monsters in the auction world. Then there are off-metal strikes and wrong planchet errors, where a 1937 penny was accidentally struck on the wrong metal. These are so rare that most collectors will never see one in their lifetime. When verified, authenticated, and preserved in extra fine condition, these errors have shattered expectations. Now here's the part that makes collectors' hands shake. A standard 1937 wheat penny in extra fine condition might sell for a respectable amount. But a 1937 Lincoln wheat penny with a confirmed double die or rare mint error, still holding strong detail like the one you're seeing, has reached 6-figure territory in private sales. And in extreme cases, with pristine surfaces, bold strike, and a dramatic error, values have been whispered above $450,000 when 2 serious collectors refuse to back down. That's right. A single penny, nearly $500,000. And the scariest part, many of these coins were found in old jars, inherited collections, or forgotten albums where no one thought to look closely. People spent decades handling them, never realizing they were touching something that could pay off a home, fund retirement, or change a family's future. So when you look at this 1937 penny in extra fine condition, don't dismiss it. Look closer, study the date, examine the lettering, check the weight, listen to what the metal tells you, because history doesn't always shout, sometimes it whispers, and this penny is whispering something very dangerous. Take a moment with it, because next up, we're moving forward to another Lincoln wheat penny that shocked the collecting world even harder, and the value jump from here is something very few people are prepared for. Now moving on, and this is where things start to get very serious. You're looking at a 1929 Lincoln wheat penny in full fine condition. At first glance, it may seem worn. The high points of Lincoln's hair are smooth. The cheek has visible circulation, where the wheat lines on the reverse are not razor sharp anymore. But here's what most people don't understand: full fine is often the sweet spot for rare early varieties. Let's step back into 1929 for a moment. America was standing on the edge of disaster. The stock market crash hit in October of that year, launching the Great Depression. Coins from 1929 were struck during a period of economic uncertainty. Production was high in some mints, lower in others, and quality control wasn't always perfect. That combination creates opportunity, and opportunity creates rarity. Now here's where it gets exciting. The 1929 Lincoln Wheat Penny was minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Most circulated examples are common, but the 1929s, and especially certain weakly struck or die variety examples, have stunned collectors for decades. In full, fine condition, the key detail to look for is clarity in the date and mint mark. If your coin carries a small s under the date, that's San Francisco, and that's where things begin to heat up. Even in full fine condition, a 1929s commands serious attention, because fewer were minted compared to Philadelphia issues. But wait, this is where the shock factor begins. There are known repunched mint mark varieties for 1929s. Under magnification, you might see slight doubling or shadowing around the S. That tiny detail, something most people would never notice, can multiply the coin's value dramatically. Collectors pay huge premiums for clean, problem-free examples with visible mint mark anomalies. And here's the part that surprises many viewers. Over 50, because this could easily be sitting in an old collection album right now. A regular 1929 in full fine condition might trade for a modest amount. A 1929s in strong, full fine condition? Now, you're entering four-figure territory. But a confirmed rare mint mark variety, authenticated and graded, even in full fine condition, has crossed into well over $85,000 in high-demand auctions when condition, color, and originality align. Yes, you heard that correctly. And if the coin shows an exceptional strike, clean surfaces, strong eye appeal, and a dramatic mint mark error, there have been private sales whispered into the $500,000 range when elite collectors compete for registry quality sets. $500,000 for a coin that many people once used to buy a loaf of bread. This is why condition matters so much. Full fine means the coin still carries strong design structure. The lettering is bold. The wheat stalks are visible. The rim is complete. It hasn't been destroyed by heavy wear or corrosion. That makes it highly collectible, especially for early Depression-era pieces. Here's how you identify potential value on your 1929. Check the mint mark under the date. Look closely for doubling or unusual placement of the S. Examine the surfaces. For original brown or reddish-brown color, avoid cleaned coins. Cleaning kills value instantly. And most importantly, verify weight and authenticity. If anything looks unusual, coins like this carry history. They survived the Great Depression. They passed through hands that were struggling to survive. And today, one of them could quietly hold six-figure power. Now, before we move to the next penny, and trust me, the next one jumps to an entirely different level. If you love uncovering hidden value in everyday coins, make sure you're subscribed to us Mint Mysteries. Because what's coming next makes these first to look calm by comparison. Take a breath. Because the next Lincoln Wheat Penny we're about to reveal has shocked even seasoned experts, and its value climbs even higher. Alright, now lean in close, because this next penny is where collectors' hearts start beating faster. You're looking at a 1937D Lincoln Wheat Penny in extra fine condition. And the first thing that jumps out immediately is that red shade on the front. That color alone changes everything. Most pennies from the 1930s lost their original red brilliance decades ago. To see a Denver Mint coin from 1937 still holding red color on Lincoln's portrait is not just rare, it's dangerous. Let's talk about what this really means. The D mint mark tells us this coin was struck in Denver, a mint known in the 1930s for rougher strikes and faster production. Because of that, many Denver pennies wore down quickly or lost their original color early in circulation. That's why a 1937D surviving in extra fine condition is already desirable. But when you add original red or red-brown luster on the obverse, collectors start paying very close attention. Look at Lincoln's face. The jawline is still defined. The coat lines are visible. The hair above the ear hasn't melted away. That tells us this coin didn't spend decades grinding against other coins. It was either pulled from circulation early, or forgotten somewhere safe. Now here's where the suspense builds. Color is king in copper coins. A red Lincoln wheat penny means the copper hasn't fully oxidized. That original mint glow is extremely fragile. One wrong cleaning, one damp environment, one careless touch, and it's gone forever. So when a 1937D shows natural red color on the front, untouched, and original, grading services take notice immediately. And collectors? They compete fiercely. A typical 1937D wheat penny in circulated condition is common. Even extra fine brown examples are affordable. But extra fine with red color, especially from Denver, pushes the coin into an entirely different league. Add sharp strike quality and clean surfaces. And now, you're looking at a coin that's serious registry. Collectors want for top-rank sets. But we're not done yet. There are known die varieties, and subtle double details on some 1937D pennies. Slight doubling on lettering, minor die cracks, or unusual spacing in the date can turn a strong red example into something truly explosive. These details are easy to miss unless you know exactly what to look for, and many people never look twice. Now here comes the jaw-drop moment. A standard 1937D in extra fine brown condition may sell for a solid price. A 1937D in extra fine with original red color, properly graded and problem-free, has reached 5-figure levels in public auctions. But when that same coin carries a confirmed variety or dramatic die error and retains eye-catching red luster, elite collectors have pushed prices into the high 6-figure range. There have been private transactions rumored above $600,000 when condition, color, rarity, and demand collide at the perfect moment. Yes, over $500,000 for a penny. And the most unsettling part, many red-toned wheat pennies were stored away decades ago by people who simply liked the color. They didn't know about grading. They didn't know about registry sets. They just saved what looked nice. Today, those choices can turn into generational wealth. So if you ever find a 1937D wheat penny with red color on Lincoln's face, do not clean it. Do not rub it. Do not store it loosely. Protect it immediately. Because copper like this doesn't forgive mistakes. This coin tells a story of survival not just through history, but through time itself. Now, stay right here. Because the next Lincoln wheat penny takes us into even darker territory, where minting mistakes and scarcity collide, and the value leaps to a level that leaves most people completely stunned. Now, let's shift to a year that many of you remember hearing about from your parents. Or maybe you lived through its final chapter yourself. You're looking at a 1945 Lincoln wheat penny in full fine condition, a coin struck during the final year of World War II. Think about that for a moment. This penny was made while American soldiers were still overseas. Factories were roaring. The country was tense. And the U.S. Mint was producing coins under immense national pressure. At first glance, a 1945 wheat penny might not seem special. In full fine condition, Lincoln's hair shows moderate wear. The cheek is smooth, but still outlined. The wheat stalks on the reverse are visible, though the finer lines have softened. The rim is complete. The date is strong. It is clearly circulated, but it has not been abused, and that's exactly where the hidden value begins. During the war years, metal composition and mint production were under constant strain. By 1945, the mint had returned to the normal bronze alloy after the famous 1943 steel cents. But the machinery was worn, dyes were overused, and quality control was stretched thin. That's when small errors slipped through. Now, here's what makes the 1945 wheat penny so fascinating to collectors. There are documented double die varieties from 1945, especially noticeable in the lettering of "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." Under magnification, you may see a slight shadowing or separation in the letters. It's subtle, easy to miss, but when confirmed, it transforms an ordinary coin into something extraordinary. And then there's the 1945S and 1945D mint issues. San Francisco and Denver both struck millions of coins, but certain die pairings created sharper strikes and scarcer variations. A full fine 1945S with strong detail and clean surfaces is already collectible, but when you add a verified doubled die or repunched mint mark into the mix, the energy changes instantly. Here's the part that shocks most viewers. A normal 1945 wheat penny in circulated condition might only be worth a small premium. Even in full fine, it may seem modest at first, but a confirmed 1945 double die in strong, full fine condition has crossed into tens of thousands of dollars at auction. And when condition improves, an eye appeal remains untouched. Examples have approached and exceeded $250,000 when certified and highly sought after, but we're not done. There are extremely rare transitional and off-metal errors known from the mid-1940s. If a 1945 penny was accidentally struck on the wrong planchet, something incredibly rare but documented in that era, values can surge into the $700,000 range or more, depending on authentication and preservation. That's right. A wartime penny, carried in pockets during one of the most intense periods in American history, could hold life-changing value. And here's what makes full fine condition so important. It means the coin still holds structure. The date is bold. The mint mark, if present, is clear. The surfaces haven't been destroyed by corrosion or harsh cleaning. Collectors want originality. They want history preserved, not polished away. So, how do you identify potential value in your 1945 wheat penny? First, check the mint mark under the date. No mint mark means Philadelphia, D for Denver, S for San Francisco. Second, examine the lettering carefully under magnification. Look for doubling, unusual spacing, or thickened letters. Third, weigh the coin. It should match the standard bronze composition for the year. And finally, never clean it. Even a light cleaning can reduce a six-figure coin down to pocket change. This penny represents the end of a global war. It passed through hands that were rationing sugar, saving rubber, and praying for loved ones overseas. And today, one example, in the right condition, with the right variety, could rival the value of a home. Take that in for a second, because the final coin in this lineup climbs even higher. And what happened with that Lincoln wheat penny has stunned collectors for generations. Stay with me. The grand reveal is next, and it may be the most unbelievable of them all. Now, we arrive at a penny that has caused more shock, more arguments, and more jaw-dropping auction moments than almost any other Lincoln wheat cent ever made. You're looking at a 1944D Lincoln wheat penny in extra fine condition, and before you dismiss it, stop right there. Because this is one of the most dangerous pennies an American collector can hold. At first glance, it looks honest. Lincoln's portrait still has shape. The hair details are worn, but visible. The cheek shows smooth circulation, not damage. The wheat ears on the reverse are clear enough to instantly identify the design. The rim is complete. The date is bold. This is a well-preserved, naturally circulated coin. Exactly the kind collectors trust. But 1944 is not just any year. This penny was struck while World War II was still raging. The U.S. Mint had just come out of one of the most chaotic periods in coin production history. In 1943, pennies were made from steel to save copper for the war effort. In 1944, the mint officially returned to bronze, but the transition was not clean, and that's where the legend begins. A small number of 1944D pennies were accidentally struck on leftover steel planchets meant for 1943. These coins were never supposed to exist. They slipped through unnoticed, entered circulation, and disappeared into everyday life. Most people will never see one, but here's what makes this extra fine 1944D so powerful. Condition does not matter unless the coin is correct. And when it is, everything changes. A normal bronze 1944D penny in extra fine condition is collectible, but modest. However, a 1944D steel cent, even with circulation wear, is one of the most valuable coins in American numismatics. And many were found exactly like this. Worn, honest, full fine to extra fine because they circulated before anyone knew what they were. Now imagine the moment. A collector checks a 1944D penny with a magnet, and it sticks. That single second has turned a 1-cent coin into a financial earthquake. Authentic 1944D steel cents are so rare that fewer than a handful are confirmed. When they appear, the entire collecting world pays attention. Even in circulated condition, verified examples have sold for well over $400,000. In extra fine condition, with clear date, visible mint mark, and natural surfaces, values have climbed past $1 million in private sales. Yes, $1 million. And here's the part that keeps experts awake at night. Many fake copies exist, but the real ones have exact weight, correct magnetic response, and specific die characteristics that grading services recognize instantly. That's why authentication is everything. But steel isn't the only danger. There are also repunched mint marks, die cracks, and planchet errors known on 1944D bronze pennies. While these don't reach 7 figures, some verified error examples in extra fine condition have crossed into high 6-figure territory. When I appeal and rarity collide.so, how do you identify a potentially life-changing 1944D penny? First, test it with a magnet gently. Second, weigh it accurately. Third, inspect the mint mark closely for doubling or irregular shape. Fourth, look for unnatural color or altered surfaces. Those are red flags. And above all, never clean it. Cleaning can destroy hundreds of thousands of dollars in seconds. This penny represents the chaos of wartime America. It survived a metal shortage, rushed production, and decades of circulation. And today, one real example can outperform stocks, gold, and even real estate.so when you hold a 1944D Lincoln Wheat Penny in extra fine condition. Understand this: you are holding one of the most closely watched dates in U.S. coin history. A penny that doesn't just whisper value.it shouts it. And that concludes one of the most shocking Lincoln Wheat Penny lineups ever revealed, where ordinary pocket change can turn into life-changing money. Today, we're diving into 5 ultra-rare Lincoln Wheat Pennies that shocked collectors with jaw-dropping values reaching into the hundreds of thousands, and in some cases, even more. Next up is the 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny in extra fine condition, and this coin may look ordinary at first glance, but collectors know there's much more hiding beneath that old copper surface. Right after World War II ended, the United States Mint returned to producing pennies using the famous bronze composition, and millions of Americans carried these coins through one of the biggest rebuilding periods in American history. That alone gives the 1946 Wheat Penny strong collector interest. Now here's where things get exciting. If your 1946 Wheat Penny is in extra fine condition, that means the coin still shows strong detail on Abraham Lincoln's hair, sharp wheat lines on the reverse, and only light wear from circulation. Most coins from 1946 were heavily used for decades, so finding one with clean detail and original color instantly grabs attention from collectors. The first thing you want to check is the mint mark under the date. No mint mark means it was struck in Philadelphia, a small d means Denver, and an S stands for San Francisco. Many older collectors especially love the San Francisco version because well-preserved examples are harder to find with strong luster and full wheat lines. But the real wow factor comes from rare errors and high-grade examples. A normal circulated 1946 Wheat Penny may only sell for a few cents to a few dollars, but an extra fine example with strong eye appeal can already attract collector interest. And if the coin has a rare minting error, the value can explode dramatically. Coin trackers: some 1946 Wheat Pennies have been discovered with doubled lettering, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or unusual die cracks. Error collectors pay serious money for these mistakes because they are one-of-a-kind pieces of mint history. In rare cases, high-grade red examples with major errors have sold for thousands of dollars at auction. Another thing that makes this penny special is its color. Collectors separate these coins into brown, red-brown, and full red condition. If your 1946 wheat penny still has bright original red copper color after nearly 80 years, the value rises fast. Many older coin hunters search through rolls of pennies, hoping to find one hidden gem with untouched surfaces and blazing mint color. And here's something many people miss. Even though over 900 million of these pennies were minted, condition changes everything. Most surviving examples are worn down, scratched, cleaned, or damaged. But a sharp, extra fine coin with beautiful detail can still stand out in today's market. That's why experienced collectors always inspect the wheat stalks carefully, check the lettering, and look for signs of original surfaces instead of polished or clean metal. Some rare, top-condition 1946 wheat pennies have reached impressive auction prices, especially those graded near mint state with strong red color and rare varieties. While most examples are affordable, the very best pieces can surprise collectors with values reaching into the thousands. So before you ignore that old 1946 penny sitting in a jar or tucked inside an old coin album, take a closer look. Check the date, the mint mark, the color, and every tiny detail on the surface. Because one small error or one unusually preserved coin could turn an ordinary 1-cent piece into an incredible collector discovery. And trust me, the next wheat penny in this video becomes even more shocking. Moving on to the 1954D Lincoln Wheat Penny. And this is the kind of coin that can fool almost anyone at first glance. To most people, it looks like just another old penny from the 1950s. But collectors know that certain 1954D wheat pennies in full fine condition with the fresh, new coin appearance can become surprisingly valuable, especially when the surfaces still shine with original mint color. This coin was struck at the Denver Mint, which is why you'll see the small D mint mark right below the date. During 1954, millions of wheat pennies were produced as America entered a booming post-war economy. These pennies passed through grocery stores, gas stations, family diners, and small town banks all across the country. Most were heavily used for years, which is exactly why a well-preserved example today can stand out so dramatically. Now, here's where collectors get excited. A 1954D wheat penny in full fine condition still shows strong detail in Lincoln's coat, hairlines, and the wheat stalks on the back. But when the coin also has that bright new coin, but with glowing copper surfaces, clean fields, and minimal marks, it immediately attracts attention. Many collectors spend years searching for examples that still look close to the day they left the mint. The color of the coin matters more than many people realize. Collectors separate these pennies into brown, red-brown, and full red condition. A full red 1954D penny with original mint shine can bring dramatically higher prices compared to a dull brown example. That warm, glowing copper color is one of the biggest signs the coin escaped decades of damage, moisture, and circulation wear. But things become even more interesting when rare errors enter the picture. Some 1954D wheat pennies have been discovered with repunched mint marks, die cracks, off-center strikes, and doubled lettering. These small mistakes happen during the minting process, and collectors absolutely love them because they create unique varieties that are far harder to find than standard coins. One of the most watched details on this coin is the D mint mark itself. On some examples, the mint mark appears slightly doubled or misplaced due to the punching process used during that era. A strong repunched mint mark variety can send values much higher, especially if the coin remains in beautiful condition. Now imagine finding one of these coins in an old family coin jar with blazing red color, still shining after more than 70 years. That's exactly the kind of discovery that keeps collectors searching through penny rolls every single day. Many valuable wheat pennies were overlooked for decades simply because people assumed all old pennies were common. A regular worn 1954D wheat penny may only be worth a small amount over face value. But high-grade examples with strong original red surfaces can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on rarity, grading, and eye appeal. And when a major mint error is involved, the prices can climb even higher. Some exceptional pieces have shocked collectors at auction because of their incredible preservation and rarity. Another important thing to check is whether the coin has been cleaned. Many people accidentally ruin the value of old pennies by polishing them to make them shiny. Professional collectors actually prefer natural surfaces with original mint luster. If your 195 still has untouched color and smooth, natural shine, that is a very strong sign. So, if you own a 1954D Lincoln Wheat Penny with a clean, almost brand new appearance, don't ignore it. Look carefully at the mint mark, the wheat lines, the color, and the overall sharpness of the design, because one small detail could turn that simple-looking penny into a serious collector coin worth far more than anyone expected. And believe me, the next wheat penny on this list takes the mystery and value to an entirely different level. Now, let's talk about the 1951 Lincoln Wheat Penny in fine condition with a dark black shade on the front side. Because this is exactly the kind of coin that makes collectors stop and take a second look. At first, many people think dark coloring means damage or dirt, but sometimes, that unusual appearance can actually make an old wheat penny far more interesting than expected. The 1951 wheat penny was minted during a time when these coins were still heavily used in everyday American life. People carried them in pocket change, dropped them into vending machines, and stored them in old coffee cans for decades. Because of that heavy circulation, most surviving examples today are worn down with scratches, fading details, or corrosion. But a fine condition example with clear date numbers and visible wheat stalks still holds solid collector value. Now, here's where the story gets exciting. That black shade appearing on the front of your coin may have formed naturally over many years. Copper reacts to air, moisture, oils from hands, and environmental conditions, creating darker toning across the surface. Some collectors actually love naturally toned coins because every pattern becomes unique. A deep black or dark chocolate tone can give the penny an aged historical appearance that instantly stands out from ordinary bright copper examples, but you need to look carefully, because not all dark coins are the same. Natural toning usually appears smooth and even across the coin, while damage or corrosion often creates rough spots, bubbling, or unnatural discoloration. If the black shade looks original and the coin still has sharp lettering and strong wheat details, collectors may consider it attractive toning instead of damage. The mint mark is also extremely important. Check below the date carefully. No mint mark means Philadelphia, a D means Denver, and an S stands for San Francisco. Certain mint varieties from 1951 are much tougher to locate in higher grades, especially with unusual natural toning that gives the coin strong eye appeal. And here comes the real surprise. Some 1951 wheat pennies have been discovered with valuable mint errors hiding in plain sight. Collectors constantly search for doubled lettering, die cracks, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and repunched mint marks from this era. These mistakes happen during production at the mint, and even small errors can dramatically increase a coin's value. Imagine this for a moment. Someone opens an old family coin album and finds a dark 1951 wheat penny tucked inside for generations. At first, it seems ordinary, until experts notice rare doubling on the date or an unusual mint mark variety. Suddenly, a 1-cent coin becomes a serious collector discovery worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Condition still matters greatly, even with darker toning. In fine condition, Lincoln's portrait should remain visible with moderate wear, and the wheat lines on the reverse should still show clear separation. If the coin also avoids heavy scratches, cleaning, or corrosion, collectors become much more interested. One thing older collectors know very well is that original surfaces are everything. Many cleaned coins lose their natural character forever, but a naturally toned, black-shaded wheat penny with authentic aging can sometimes attract more attention than an artificially polished coin. That old dark appearance tells a story of decades of history, circulation, and survival, Some high-grade 1951 wheat pennies with rare errors or exceptional eye appeal have sold for surprising amounts at auction, especially when certified by professional grading companies. And even though millions were made, truly attractive examples are becoming harder to find every year. So, before you dismiss that dark-colored 1951 wheat penny as just an old, dirty coin, examine it carefully under good lighting. Check the date, mint mark, lettering, and the texture of the black toning, because hidden beneath that dark surface could be a valuable collector coin that most people would overlook without a second thought. And trust me, the next coin in this collection becomes even more unbelievable. Next up is the 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny in fine condition with an unusual white shade showing on the front side. And this is the type of coin that instantly creates mystery among collectors. Most people expect old wheat pennies to have a brown or reddish copper color, so when a 1942 penny shows strange white or silver-looking areas on the front, people immediately start asking questions. And sometimes, those questions lead to surprisingly valuable discoveries. The year 1942 was one of the most historic years in American coin history. The United States had entered World War II, and metals became extremely important for military production. While the famous steel pennies would not appear until 1943, collectors still pay close attention to 1942 wheat pennies because they came right before that dramatic wartime change. That connection alone gives these coins strong historical interest today. Now, if your 1942 wheat penny is in fine condition, it means the coin still shows moderate detail across Lincoln's portrait and visible wheat stalks on the reverse, even though it circulated for many years. Most coins from this era were heavily used during wartime America, so finding one with decent detail already catches attention, but the real curiosity comes from that white shade on the front side. In some cases, this appearance may come from environmental toning, chemical reactions, or exposure to certain storage conditions over decades. Sometimes old copper coins develop pale gray, silver, or even whitish surfaces due to oxidation or contact with other metals. And occasionally, collectors discover coins that were accidentally plated or altered long ago, creating a very unusual appearance. Here's where things get really exciting. Some 1942 wheat pennies with strange color variations turn out to have mint-related abnormalities or rare surface errors that make them far more collectible than normal examples. Collectors carefully inspect these coins for signs of experimental metal mixtures, improper alloy blending, or unusual planchet issues that occurred during wartime production. And believe it or not, wartime pennies from the early 1940s are some of the most closely studied Lincoln cents in the entire hobby. Experts know that unusual-looking coins from this period can sometimes hide incredible stories behind their strange appearance. Now, check the mint mark carefully below the date. No mint mark means Philadelphia, D stands for Denver, and S means San Francisco. Certain mint varieties from 1942 are especially desirable in stronger condition, particularly when paired with unusual toning or rare mint errors. Collectors also search for doubled dies on 1942 pennies. On some rare examples, the date or lettering appears slightly doubled because of a mistake during die creation at the mint. These doubled die varieties can become extremely valuable, especially when combined with strong eye appeal or unusual surfaces. Imagine someone finding a white-shaded 1942 wheat penny in an old cigar box after 50 years, untouched. At first glance, it looks odd, maybe even damaged. But after closer inspection, experts discover an extremely rare error, variety, or unusual wartime alloy issue. Suddenly, that little 1-cent coin becomes the center of attention in the collector world. Another important thing to remember is that collectors value originality. Many people clean or polish old pennies, which can destroy collector value instantly. But if the white shade developed naturally over decades and the surfaces still appear authentic, the coin may remain highly collectible. Natural aging patterns often make a coin even more interesting, because no two-toned coins look exactly alike. Even ordinary 1942 wheat pennies in fine condition can carry decent collector value because of their wartime connection. But rare error coins, unusual color varieties, or exceptionally preserved examples can rise dramatically in price. Some top condition examples and rare varieties from this era have shocked collectors with auction values reaching thousands of dollars. So, before you ignore that strange looking 1942 wheat penny with the white shade on the front, take a closer look. Examine the surface carefully under light, study the date and mint mark, and check for any unusual doubling or striking errors. Because hidden beneath that unusual color could be a wartime collector treasure that most people would never recognize. And believe me, the next wheat penny on this list takes the mystery and value to an entirely new level. Now, let's take a close look at the 1956 Lincoln wheat penny in fine condition with visible damage. Because this is one of the most misunderstood coins among new collectors. Many people instantly assume a damaged coin has no value at all. But in the world of rare wheat pennies, that is not always true. Sometimes the smallest unusual detail hiding beneath the damage can completely change the story of the coin. The 1956 wheat penny came during the final years of the famous Lincoln wheat cent series. Just a few years before the reverse design changed forever in 1959, millions of Americans handled these pennies every day during the booming 1950 seconds economy. They passed through lunch counters, movie theaters, gas stations, and family cash registers across the country. Because they circulated so heavily, most surviving examples today show wear, scratches, stains, or other forms of damage. Now, if your 1956 wheat penny is in fine condition, it should still show clear outlines in Lincoln's portrait along with visible wheat lines on the reverse. Even with damage present, collectors still examine the coin carefully because certain rare varieties and minting errors from 1956 can remain valuable regardless of wear, and this is where things become very interesting. Some coins that appear damaged are actually hiding mint errors created during production at the U.S. Mint. Collectors have discovered 1956 wheat pennies with clipped planchets, lamination errors, off-center strikes, broad strikes, die cracks, and even doubled lettering that many people first mistook for ordinary damage. For example, a lamination error happens when impurities in the metal cause parts of the coin's surface to peel or crack during striking. To an untrained eye, it may look like simple damage, but to experienced collectors, it can be a genuine mint error worth serious money. The mint mark is another major detail to inspect. Look directly below the date. No mint mark means Philadelphia, while a D represents Denver. The Denver Mint produced enormous numbers of pennies in 1956, but certain error varieties from that facility remain highly collectible today. One of the most famous discoveries involving 1956 pennies comes from double die varieties. On some rare coins, parts of the lettering or numbers appear double because of die alignment mistakes during production. These varieties can become extremely valuable, especially when authenticated by professional grading companies. Now imagine this situation. Someone finds an old, damaged 1956 wheat penny inside a rusty toolbox or forgotten jar. The coin looks rough and worn, so most people would ignore it immediately. But after closer inspection under magnification, a hidden double die or rare planchet error suddenly appears. That ordinary-looking penny transforms into a collector discovery worth far more than anyone expected. Collectors also pay attention to color and originality. Even damaged wheat pennies can hold value if they still show natural surfaces instead of harsh cleaning or polishing. Many older collectors actually prefer coins with honest circulation wear because they reflect real American history and decades of everyday use. And here's something many people never realize. Rare coins do not always need perfect condition to become valuable. If a coin is rare enough or carries a significant mint error, collectors may still compete aggressively for it even with visible damage. In fact, some famous error coins have sold for thousands despite scratches, corrosion, or worn surfaces simply because the underlying rarity was so important. The 1956 wheat penny also carries strong nostalgia among older Americans because it represents the final era of classic wheat cents before the Lincoln Memorial reverse replaced the design. That emotional connection keeps collector demand strong even today. So, before you throw aside a damaged 1956 wheat penny, examine it carefully under strong light. Look for unusual cracks, doubling, missing metal, strange shapes, or odd surfaces that may point to a real mint error instead of ordinary wear. Because hidden beneath that damaged appearance could be a surprisingly rare collector coin that most people would overlook without a second thought. And trust me, some of the most valuable wheat pennies ever discovered looked completely ordinary before experts noticed the hidden details. Story so unbelievable. At first glance, the 1945 wheat penny may look like just another old copper cent sitting in a jar or tucked away in a drawer. But hidden among millions of ordinary examples are a few ultra-rare versions that have stunned collectors with jaw-dropping prices. Now, if you have a 1945 wheat penny in extra fine condition, you're already holding a piece of American history from the final year of World War II. Think about that for a second. This coin was circulating while American soldiers were returning home, while factories across the country were still producing wartime supplies, and while the United States was entering a brand new era. That alone makes this penny special to collectors. But what really sends the value skyrocketing are the tiny details most people never notice. A normal 1945 wheat penny in heavily circulated condition may only be worth a few cents or a few dollars. But when collectors find one in extra fine condition with strong details, clean wheat lines, and original color, the value starts climbing fast. In extra fine grade, many 1945 pennies can sell between $25 and $100 depending on the mint mark and color quality. But that's not the version that has collectors losing their minds. The real excitement begins when rare mint errors enter the picture. One of the most famous is the 1945 double die error. This happens when the coin design gets stamped slightly more than once at different angles, creating noticeable doubling in the lettering and date. On some examples, the word Liberty and the numbers in the date appear thick and doubled under magnification. To an ordinary person, it may look small, but to collectors, that tiny mistake can mean an enormous payday. And here's where things become shocking. A genuine 1945 double die wheat penny in strong condition has sold for thousands of dollars at auction. Some high-end red uncirculated examples have pushed beyond $20,000, especially when professionally graded. Imagine finding a coin like that in an old coffee can or inherited collection. That's the kind of discovery collectors dream about. But there's another version that sends the value even higher. Some 1945 wheat pennies were struck off-center during production. These dramatic mint errors show part of the design missing because the blank planchet was not properly aligned in the press. Depending on how off-center the strike is, values can explode into the five-figure range. Collectors love visible mint mistakes because every error is unique, almost like a fingerprint from history. Now, here's something many people don't realize. The mint mark matters enormously. If your 1945 penny has a small d under the date, it was made in Denver. If it has an S, it came from San Francisco. No mint mark means Philadelphia. Certain mint marks, combined with rare errors and strong condition, can create massive value differences overnight. For an extra fine example like yours, collectors would closely inspect the coin for sharp wheat stalk details on the reverse, visible lines in Lincoln's coat, and minimal wear on the cheek and jaw. Original reddish color also increases value dramatically. Coins that still show bright red luster after more than 80 years are extremely desirable because most turned brown from circulation over time, and this is why so many collectors search rolls of pennies every single day, because one tiny detail can separate a $1 coin from a coin worth enough to change someone's life. Even more incredible, a few rare 1945 transitional errors and experimental metal strikes have created unbelievable headlines in the coin world. While extremely rare, certain unusual metal compositions from the wartime period have sold for astonishing amounts when authenticated by major grading companies. That's why experts always recommend checking weight, color, and strike quality carefully. So, before you ignore an old 1945 wheat penny, take a closer look. Check the date carefully. Look for doubling. Examine the mint mark. Study the condition under bright light. Because what looks like an ordinary penny to most people could actually be a hidden treasure collectors are willing to fight over. And trust me, the next coin on this list becomes even more unbelievable. Moving on to another Lincoln Wheat Penny that has shocked collectors for decades. We now come to the mysterious 1918 Wheat Penny with no mint mark. And if you have one in fine condition, you may already be holding a coin that collectors constantly search for in old family collections and forgotten penny jars. Now here's what makes this coin so fascinating. A 1918 wheat penny without a mint mark was produced at the Philadelphia Mint during one of the most important periods in American history. World War I was nearing its end. The economy was changing rapidly, and millions of these pennies entered circulation at a time when people actually depended on every single cent. That means most examples were heavily used, damaged, or completely worn down over the decades. So, when collectors find a surviving 1918 no mint mark penny with visible detail and clean surfaces, excitement builds immediately. Your coin being in fine condition is already important, because most 1918 pennies today are found with very heavy wear. In fine condition, the overall design still shows solid detail. Lincoln's portrait remains clear, the wheat stalks on the reverse are still visible, and parts of the lettering remain strong and readable. To many collectors, that balance between age and preservation makes coins like this extremely attractive. A normal 1918 no mint mark wheat penny in lower grades may sell for only a few dollars, but once condition improves into fine, very fine, and extra fine territory, prices begin rising quickly. Strong, fine condition examples with smooth surfaces and natural color can sell anywhere from $25 to several $100s, depending on eye appeal and rarity factors. But once again, the real money appears when rare errors or exceptional quality enter the picture. One of the most talked about varieties is the famous 1918 double die error. This rare mistake occurred during the die making process, causing parts of the lettering and date to appear double. Under magnification, collectors often search for noticeable doubling on Liberty and In God We Trust. It may sound like a tiny detail, but that one minting mistake has created some absolutely stunning auction prices, and this is where collectors become obsessed. A genuine 1918 double die wheat penny in strong condition has sold for tens of thousands of dollars. Some premium examples with sharp detail and original color have crossed into six-figure territory at major auctions. Imagine finding a penny worth more than a luxury car simply because of a small doubling error. Most people would never notice, but the surprises don't stop there. Some 1918 wheat pennies were struck with dramatic off-center errors, clipped planchets, or die cracks. These unusual mint mistakes are incredibly popular because each one tells a unique story from the production line more than a century ago. Collectors love coins that show visible evidence of the minting process going wrong. In some cases, rare error examples from 1918 have sold for thousands upon thousands of dollars depending on severity and condition. Now here's something very important for older collectors and casual viewers to understand. Color matters tremendously. Lincoln wheat pennies are generally classified as brown, red-brown, or full red by grading companies. A full red 1918 penny is extremely rare because copper naturally darkens over time. If a coin still shows traces of bright original mint red after more than 100 years, collectors pay huge premiums for it. That's why experienced coin hunters always examine old pennies under proper lighting. They check the edges, inspect the lettering, and study the surfaces carefully for hidden details. Even tiny scratches, cleaning marks, or unusual textures can dramatically affect value. And speaking of cleaning, one mistake destroys the value of countless old wheat pennies every year. People try to polish or shine them to make them look newer, but serious collectors actually want original, untouched surfaces. Cleaning can lower the value instantly because it removes part of the coin's natural history and texture. Now imagine this situation. An old coin album sits untouched in an attic for decades. Inside is a 1918 no-mint mark wheat penny nobody paid attention to for years. Then one day, someone notices strange doubling in the lettering or unusually sharp details. That ordinary-looking penny suddenly gets authenticated by a grading company, and the value explodes overnight. Stories exactly like that happen more often than people think. That's why these old wheat pennies continue to capture the imagination of collectors across America. They are small pieces of history hiding enormous secrets. And sometimes, those secrets are worth a fortune. So if you own a 1918 no-mint mark wheat penny in fine condition, do not ignore it. Examine every detail carefully. Check the surfaces, look for doubling, study the color, and pay attention to the overall sharpness. Because one hidden feature could transform an ordinary old penny into one of the most exciting discoveries of your life. And believe it or not, the next coin on this list becomes even rarer. Next up is a Lincoln wheat penny that many people pass by without a second thought. But hidden within this common-looking coin is a story that has shocked collectors across the country. We're talking about the 1953 Lincoln wheat penny. And if yours is in fine condition, with a natural brown color, shade, you could still be holding a coin worth far more than most people would ever imagine. At first glance, the 1953 wheat penny does not seem rare. Millions were produced during the booming post-war years in America, and these coins circulated heavily through grocery stores, gas stations, and diners across the nation. But what makes certain 1953 pennies incredibly valuable are the hidden varieties, mint errors, and condition details that only experienced collectors know how to spot. Now, when collectors hear brown color shade, that actually tells them something important immediately. Copper coins naturally change color over time. Freshly minted pennies originally had a bright red appearance, but decades of circulation and exposure slowly turned many of them brown. A natural brown tone in fine condition is completely normal for a 1953 wheat penny, and collectors still appreciate these coins because they carry an authentic aged appearance. In fine condition, your 1953 wheat penny should still show visible detail in Lincoln's hair, coat lines, and wheat stalks on the reverse. Even though some wear is expected, the lettering and date should remain clear and bold. A standard 1953 brown wheat penny in fine condition may sell for a few dollars depending on demand, but the real excitement begins when rare features are discovered, and this is where things become unbelievable. One of the most famous varieties is the 1953 double die wheat penny. This minting error creates noticeable doubling in the date and lettering. Collectors often inspect Liberty and In God We Trust very carefully under magnification. If strong doubling appears, the value can rise dramatically almost overnight. Some authenticated double die examples have sold for thousands of dollars, especially when the doubling is clear and the surfaces remain original. Even circulated examples with visible errors can attract intense bidding from collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents. But there's another hidden detail many people completely miss. The mint mark can change everything. If your 1953 penny has no mint mark, it was struck in Philadelphia. A small d means Denver, while an S stands for San Francisco. Certain mint combinations paired with rare die errors or unusual strike quality can create coins worth far beyond their normal value. And then there are the shocking mint mistakes that make collectors lose their minds. Some 1953 wheat pennies were struck off-center, while others show clipped planchets, die cracks, or dramatic cut errors where pieces of the die actually broke away during production. These mistakes create strange-looking coins that stand out immediately. To everyday people they may look damaged, but to collectors they are historical mint accidents worth serious money. One rare off-center, 1953 wheat penny sold for thousands simply because the date remained visible, while the strike error was dramatic enough to catch attention instantly. That's the type of discovery coin hunters dream about every time they search through old penny rolls. And here's where the story gets even more exciting. A few exceptionally preserved 1953 wheat pennies with rare characteristics have reached astonishing auction numbers. High-grade red examples with major errors have crossed into five-figure territory. Some elite collector pieces have sold for amounts most people would never believe possible for a 1-cent coin. Think about that for a moment. A tiny penny, once used to buy candy decades ago, could now be worth more than a brand new luxury vehicle. That's why millions of collectors continue searching old coin jars, inherited collections, and forgotten albums every single year, because hidden among ordinary coins are a few extraordinary survivors with the power to completely shock the market. Now, if your 1953 wheat penny has a smooth, natural brown surface, avoid cleaning it at all costs. This is one of the biggest mistakes beginners make. Cleaning removes original texture and destroys collector value almost instantly. Experienced buyers want coins with authentic aging, even if the surfaces are dark brown. Experts also recommend checking the coin carefully under strong lighting. Look for unusual doubling, strange cracks, uneven strikes, or lettering that appears distorted. Sometimes the smallest detail becomes the difference between a coin worth a few dollars and a coin worth a small fortune, and perhaps the most exciting part of all is this: valuable wheat pennies are still being discovered today. Even after decades of searching, collectors continue finding rare varieties hidden in old family collections and estate boxes nobody touched for years. So, before you toss aside a 1953 wheat penny because it looks old and brown, take another look. That little coin may carry far more value than anyone around you realizes. And as this countdown continues, the next Lincoln wheat penny becomes even more mysterious, and the possible value becomes absolutely staggering. Now, we arrive at a Lincoln wheat penny that has quietly become one of the most fascinating discoveries among serious collectors. The 1937 wheat penny. And if you have one in extra fine condition, you may be holding a coin that looks ordinary on the surface, but hides enormous collector potential underneath. The moment collectors hear 1937 wheat penny, they immediately begin checking for tiny details that most people never notice. That's because this coin comes from an era when America was still recovering from the Great Depression. Families saved every penny they could, and coins circulated heavily through the toughest economic years in the country's history. Because of that, finding a well-preserved 1937 penny today is far more exciting than many people realize. An extra fine condition example is especially desirable because it still carries strong original detail. Lincoln's cheek and jawline remain sharp, the hair above the ear is visible, and the wheat stalks on the back still show impressive line detail. Unlike lower-grade coins that appear heavily worn and faded, extra fine examples look crisp and attractive to collectors. A regular 1937 wheat penny in average circulated condition might only be worth a small amount, but once condition improves into extra fine territory, prices rise quickly. Strong examples with smooth surfaces and natural color can sell for dozens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on eye appeal and mint mark rarity. But as always with Lincoln wheat pennies, the true treasures are the rare varieties and hidden errors. And this is where the story becomes unbelievable. One of the most exciting discoveries tied to 1937 pennies involves dramatic double die varieties. These rare errors happened when the coin die received multiple impressions at slightly different angles during production. The result is visible doubling on parts of the design, especially in the lettering and date. To most people, it may look like a tiny flaw, but to collectors, that tiny flaw can mean life-changing money. Some authenticated 1937 double die wheat pennies have sold for thousands upon thousands of dollars. In high-grade condition with strong doubling, values can climb dramatically because collectors compete aggressively for rare error coins from the 1930s. And then there are the off-center strikes. Imagine pulling out a penny where part of Lincoln's portrait is missing because the coin was not properly aligned during minting. That kind of dramatic mistake instantly grabs attention. Some 1937 off-center wheat pennies have sold for incredible prices simply because the error is visually shocking while the date remains readable. But perhaps even more exciting are rare, high-grade survivors with original red color. Now, this is something many people do not understand about wheat pennies. Copper changes over time. Most old pennies turned brown after decades of circulation and air exposure, so when collectors discover a 1937 wheat penny that still shows traces of bright red mint luster after nearly 90 years, demand skyrockets immediately. In fact, some fully red 1937 wheat pennies in certified mint condition have sold for staggering amounts at auction. A few exceptional examples with rare varieties and flawless surfaces have reached into the high five-figure range, leaving many people completely stunned that a 1-cent coin could command such unbelievable money. And believe it or not, there are even rumors of unusual transitional strikes and experimental planchet errors from this period that continue to attract massive interest among advanced collectors. That's why experts always recommend checking every detail carefully. First, examine the date and lettering under magnification. Look for signs of doubling or unusual thickness in the letters. Next, study the edges and surfaces for cracks, chips, or striking mistakes. Finally, pay attention to color and overall eye appeal. Even small differences in preservation can create enormous jumps in value. And here's something extremely important. Never clean the coin. Many people think polishing an old wheat penny makes it more valuable, but the opposite is true. Cleaning destroys original surfaces and removes the natural texture collectors want to see. A naturally aged, extra fine penny almost always sells for more than a cleaned example. Now, think about how incredible this really is. A tiny copper coin made in 1937 during the Great Depression could still be hiding in an old collection somewhere today, waiting to be discovered for the first time in decades. Maybe it sat untouched in a family coin album. Maybe it stayed hidden in an old cigar box passed down through generations. And maybe, just maybe, the owner has no idea. It could be worth a small fortune. That possibility is exactly what keeps collectors searching every single day. So if you own a 1937 wheat penny in extra fine condition, do not underestimate it. Study it carefully. Check for unusual features. Pay attention to strike quality, color, and mint marks. Because one tiny hidden detail could turn an ordinary-looking penny into one of the most exciting discoveries in your entire collection. And trust me, the final coin on this list takes rarity and value to an entirely different level. And now, we come to a Lincoln wheat penny that has become a true sleeper coin among collectors. The 1939 Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, it may not seem as famous as some of the legendary dates people talk about at coin shows. But hidden within certain 1939 pennies are rare details and minting surprises that have absolutely stunned the coin collecting world. And if you have one in extra fine condition, you could be holding a coin with far more value than most people would ever expect. Think about the timing of this coin for a moment. The year 1939 marked the beginning of World War II in Europe. America was standing on the edge of a completely different era, and millions of wheat pennies moved through the hands of everyday people during uncertain times. Most were spent immediately, worn down through circulation, or simply lost forever. That's why strong extra fine survivors are becoming harder and harder to find today. In extra fine condition, a 1939 wheat penny still carries impressive detail. Lincoln's portrait appears sharp, the cheek and jawline remain bold, and the wheat stalks on the reverse still show strong separation lines. Collectors love coins in this grade because they balance historical age with attractive preservation. A standard circulated 1939 penny may only bring a few dollars, but once the condition improves into extra fine territory, collector interest rises quickly. But the real excitement begins when hidden varieties and errors enter the picture. One of the most famous discoveries tied to 1939 Lincoln wheat pennies is the double die variety. These rare coins show visible doubling in the lettering or date, caused by a die production mistake at the mint. Collectors carefully inspect the words, "In God We Trust," and "Liberty Looking For," thickened or shadow-like doubling effects. And here's where things become shock. A genuine 1939 double die wheat penny in strong condition can command enormous prices. Some authenticated examples have sold for thousands of dollars, especially when the doubling is dramatic and easy to see. High-grade versions with original mint color have created bidding wars between collectors, trying to secure one for their collections, but that's only the beginning. Some 1939 pennies were also struck with incredible mint errors, including off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, and broad strikes. These errors happened during the minting process and created coins that look completely different from normal wheat pennies. To most people they may appear damaged, but to experienced collectors they are rare, mint-made accidents, worth serious money. One dramatic off-center 1939 penny sold for an astonishing amount simply because nearly half the design was missing while the date remained fully visible. That combination makes error collectors go crazy because it creates a visually powerful coin that instantly stands out. And then there's the issue of mint marks. If your 1939 wheat penny has no mint mark, it came from Philadelphia. A small d below the date means Denver, while an S stands for San Francisco. Certain mint marks are scarcer in higher grades, and collectors pay major premiums for examples with sharp strikes and attractive surfaces. Now, here's something many casual collectors never realize. The color of the coin can dramatically affect value. Most 1939 wheat pennies today are brown because copper naturally darkens over time, but a few survived, with original red mint luster still visible after more than 80 years. Those rare red examples are highly prized because they look almost untouched by time. In certified mint state grades, some red 1939 wheat pennies have sold for astonishing five-figure prices, and in rare cases involving major errors or exceptional preservation, values can climb even higher. Imagine finding a tiny 1-cent coin worth enough to pay off debts, purchase a vehicle, or completely transform someone's collection overnight. That possibility is exactly why collectors continue searching through old coin rolls and inherited boxes every single year. Now, if your 1939 wheat penny is extra fine, there are a few important things to check immediately. First, inspect the lettering carefully under magnification for any signs of doubling. Next, examine the surfaces for unusual strike patterns, cracks, or off-center details. Then check the overall color and originality of the coin. Natural surfaces almost always bring stronger prices than cleaned examples. And please remember this: never polish or clean the coin. Cleaning removes the original surface texture collectors desperately want to see. Even a naturally toned brown coin in extra fine condition can be worth far more than a shiny clean version. The truth is, Lincoln wheat pennies continue to surprise the collecting world because new discoveries happen constantly. Rare varieties are still being uncovered in old family albums, estate sales, and forgotten jars sitting in attics across America. So, before you dismiss a 1939 wheat penny as just another old cent, take a closer look. That little coin may hold hidden details capable of turning an ordinary collection into something extraordinary. And that's the magic of coin collecting. Sometimes the smallest treasures carry the biggest surprises of all. They look completely ordinary at first glance, but don't let that rich brown color and worn copper surface fool you. This is a 1937 Lincoln wheat penny, and in extra fine condition like this one, collectors immediately start paying attention. What makes this coin so fascinating is that many people have unknowingly spent these for decades without realizing they were carrying a piece of American history that could be worth far more than 1 cent. Take a close look at the details on this coin. Even after nearly 90 years, you can still clearly see Lincoln's coat lines, the sharp lettering around the rim, and strong wheat stalk details on the reverse. That's exactly what collectors love to see in an extra fine example. The coin still has solid eye appeal, and that level of preservation dramatically changes the value. Now, here's where things start getting exciting. Most regular 1937 wheat pennies found in heavily worn condition might only sell for a few dollars. But when a coin survives in extra fine condition like this one, values can quickly jump into the hundreds. And if the coin has original red mint luster hiding under the surface, some collectors have paid thousands just to own a cleaner example. But this is where the real mystery begins. Certain 1937 wheat pennies were struck with rare minting errors. that transformed an ordinary 1-cent coin into something collectors desperately chase today. One of the most famous is the 1937 double die variety. On these rare coins, the date and lettering appear slightly doubled because of a mistake during the die creation process at the United States Mint. Many people miss it completely unless they examine the coin under magnification. Imagine discovering that your old penny has visible doubling on the words, "In God We Trust," or even on Lincoln's profile. That tiny detail could completely change the coin's value overnight. Some authenticated double die examples have sold for astonishing amounts at auction, especially when the coin remains in higher grades like extra fine or better. And then there's another shocking possibility collectors always look for with 1937 wheat pennies off-center strikes and clipped planchet errors. These dramatic mint mistakes happened when the blank coin wasn't positioned correctly during striking. The result created strange-looking coins with missing edges or crooked designs that collectors absolutely love. Depending on how dramatic the error is, values can skyrocket into the tens of thousands. Now think about this for a second. Back in 1937, during the final years of the Great Depression, this little penny could buy far more than it can today. Americans carried these coins in their pockets every single day without imagining that decades later, collectors would treat them like buried treasure. That historical connection adds even more emotional value for serious coin hunters. What really shocks many people is how condition changes everything. A heavily damaged 1937 penny might stay nearly worthless forever, but a clean, extra-fine example with strong wheat lines, readable lettering, and minimal wear instantly becomes far more desirable. And if that same coin contains a rare error or unusual mint mark combination, the value can explode into unbelievable territory. In fact, some rare high-grade 1937 wheat pennies with major errors have reportedly crossed well into six-figure territory during elite private sales. That's the kind of discovery that turns a forgotten penny jar into a life-changing moment. So how can you identify whether your 1937 wheat penny might be valuable? First, look carefully at the date and lettering for signs of doubling. Next, examine the edges for clipping errors or off-center strikes. Then check the overall condition. Strong wheat details, cleaner surfaces, and sharper features usually mean higher value. And finally, pay attention to unusual colors or mint luster, because original red copper examples are extremely desirable among collectors. And this is only the beginning. Because next up is a Lincoln wheat penny so rare that one small detail on the coin caused collectors to fight over it for years. And the value may completely shock you. Moving on to the next coin, we have a 1934 Lincoln wheat penny. And this one tells a completely different story. Unlike the cleaner extra fine coin we just explored, this example shows heavy age, darker surfaces, and noticeable rust-like discoloration from decades of circulation and environmental exposure. Most people would glance at a coin like this and assume it's worthless. But sometimes, the most unexpected coins hide the biggest surprises. This 1934 wheat penny comes from one of the toughest periods in American history. Families were still struggling through the Great Depression, and coins like this passed through thousands of hands during a time when every single penny mattered. Just imagine where this coin may have traveled over the last 90 years. Grocery stores, train stations, war-era pockets, old cash registers. This little copper coin survived generations of American history. Now at first glance, the condition may seem rough. The surfaces appear dark and rusty, and the shine is long gone. But experienced collectors know something important. Age alone does not destroy value. In fact, some rare wheat pennies with heavy wear have still sold for shocking amounts because of unique minting mistakes hidden within the design. Take a very close look at the date and lettering on a 1934 penny like this. Even in fine condition, collectors search for subtle doubling, unusual spacing in the numbers, and weak strike areas that may point toward rare die varieties. One tiny detail, invisible to the average person, can suddenly turn an old rusty penny into a coin worth thousands. And here's where things become truly exciting. Certain 1934 Lincoln wheat pennies were struck using deteriorated dies at the mint. Over time, Damaged dies created strange raised lines, distorted lettering, and unusual texture patterns across some coins. Today, these mint-made imperfections are highly collectible because they prove the coin was created during a unique moment in mint production history. But that's not all. Some 1934 wheat pennies have been discovered with dramatic lamination errors. This happened when impurities inside the metal cause parts of the coin's surface to peel or crack during the striking process. To an untrained eye, it may simply look like damage or corrosion, but to a collector, it can be evidence of a rare mint error worth serious money. And believe it or not, even lower-grade wheat pennies have shocked the hobby before. There are stories of collectors pulling old rusty coins from junk boxes for just a few cents, only to later discover rare varieties worth tens of thousands of dollars. That's why experienced coin hunters never ignore an old wheat penny, no matter how worn it looks. Now, let's talk value, because this is where the suspense really builds. A normal circulated 1934 wheat penny in rough condition might only bring a few dollars. A stronger, fine condition example with clearer wheat lines and readable lettering can move much higher. But if a rare mint error, double die, or unusual strike pattern is discovered, values can rise dramatically into the five-figure range, and in extremely rare cases involving elite collector-grade errors. Certain 1934 pennies have reached unbelievable six-figure prices during major auctions. That's the kind of hidden treasure many people unknowingly carry inside old family coin jars. This is exactly why condition alone does not tell the whole story. Yes, this coin may appear rusty and worn, but collectors know the real secret is hidden in the tiny details. The strike quality, the lettering, the die characteristics, and the possibility of rare minting mistakes. If you're enjoying these unbelievable coin discoveries so far, make sure you subscribe to us Mint Mysteries, because the next penny on our list may be even more shocking. The next coin has a feature so unusual that many collectors thought it was fake the first time they saw one, until the auction price stunned everyone watching. Now, we move back even further in time with the 1920 Lincoln Wheat Penny, and this one carries a completely different kind of energy. This coin is over a century old, and in this fine condition, with visible rust-like toning and heavy circulation, where it tells a powerful story of survival through some of the most important years in American history. Think about what was happening in 1920. The United States was just coming out of World War I. The economy was shifting, and everyday Americans were rebuilding their lives. This penny was part of that world. It passed through hands long before modern banking systems, long before credit cards, and long before most people even thought about coin collecting. And yet, here it is today, still recognizable, still holding its history in its copper surface. Even in this worn condition, a 1920 wheat penny still shows important details if you look closely. Lincoln's profile is softened but still visible. The date remains readable, and on the reverse side, you may still see outlines of the wheat stalks that define the series. That level of detail after more than 100 years is exactly what makes early wheat pennies so fascinating to collectors. Now, here's where things get interesting. Many 1920 pennies were struck at different mints, including Philadelphia and Denver. The Denver mint version, marked with a small d, is often more desirable in better condition. Even in circulated grades like this, collectors always check for that mint mark because it can slightly increase demand and value, but the real excitement comes from the hidden possibilities inside a coin like this. Early wheat pennies are well known for minting inconsistencies, and the 1920 issue is no exception. Some examples show repunched mint marks, where the D was stamped more than once in slightly different positions. Others can show weak strikes, where parts of the design appear softer or incomplete due to pressure variations at the mint. And then there are the rare error coins, the ones that completely change the story. Off-center strikes, die cracks, and lamination errors have all been discovered on early 1920 wheat pennies. In some cases, these mistakes make the coin look unusual or even damaged at first glance. But to collectors, they are signs of rarity and mint history frozen in metal. Let's talk value, because this is where the shock factor comes in. A heavily circulated 1920 wheat penny like this in fine condition might normally bring only a few dollars to a dedicated collector, but as condition improves, or if a rare mint mark variety is present, values can rise into the hundreds. And if a significant mint error is discovered on a high-grade example, prices can climb into the thousands and sometimes even higher in strong auction markets. The most surprising part is that early wheat pennies like this are becoming harder to find in any condition. Most were lost, melted down, or heavily damaged over time. That means even a worn 1920 penny still carries increasing collector interest simply because of its age and scarcity in surviving form. And this is exactly what keeps coin hunters searching through old jars, estate collections, and forgotten drawers. Because sometimes, a coin that looks tired and rusty on the surface is actually a surviving piece of early American mint history that has quietly gained value over time. But what comes next is even more intense. The next penny in this collection is known for a strange minting variation that collectors once dismissed as an error, until verified examples started selling for life-changing amounts at major auctions. Now, we move to something that honestly looks almost brand new compared to the last few coins. This is the 1938D Lincoln Wheat Penny, and in extra fine condition with that new coin appearance. It immediately stands out as a strong survivor from the late wheat penny era. At first glance, you might think this coin was pulled straight from a bankroll, or even minted recently. The details are still sharp. Lincoln's hairlines are well defined, the cheek and jawline show only light wear, and the wheat stalks on the reverse still hold strong shape and structure. That's exactly what collectors love about an extra fine 1938D. It still carries that crisp, clean look that feels alive, even after nearly 9 decades. Now here's something important about this coin that many people don't realize. The 1938D comes from the Denver Mint, and it represents one of the last strong production years before the wheat penny design began its final phase in the 1950s. Millions were made, yes, but very few survive today in this kind of clean, attractive condition. Most were heavily circulated during World War II years, which makes a coin like this far more appealing than people expect. And this is where the excitement begins to build. In normal circulated condition, a 1938D wheat penny might only be worth a few cents, or maybe $1 or $2. But in extra fine condition like this, collectors start paying attention. Values can climb into the $10 to $50 range quickly, especially for coins with strong eye appeal and original surfaces. But that is only the beginning of the story, because when you look closer, this coin can sometimes reveal something far more valuable, minting anomalies that turn an ordinary penny into a serious collector's prize. One of the most searched for possibilities on 1938D cents is a strong repunched mint mark. This happens when the D mint mark was stamped more than once in slightly different positions. Under magnification, it can look like a shadow or doubling effect near the mint mark area, and if that kind of error is present on a well-preserved coin like this, values can rise dramatically. Instead of just tens of dollars, collectors may pay hundreds or even several $1,000s, depending on the clarity and strength of the error. But there is another rare situation that truly shocks collectors. Some 1938 wheat pennies have been discovered with die cracks and die breaks, sometimes even forming what looks like raised lines across Lincoln's face or the fields of the coin. While some people mistake these for damage, advanced collectors know these are mint-made varieties, and in high-grade examples, they can become highly desirable. Now, let's talk about the real wow factor. In exceptional cases where a 1938D penny shows a major mint error combined with strong extra fine or higher condition, auction results have pushed values into the tens of thousands of dollars. And in rare, elite-level error combinations, some coins have approached the low six-figure range in specialized private sales, especially when tied to dramatic minting mistakes and premium eye appeal. That's what makes this coin so interesting. On the surface, it looks clean, simple, almost ordinary, but under the right light, and with the right detail, it can transform into something far more significant than a 1-cent piece should ever be. And now, we are getting close to the final coin in this series, because the last penny we're about to reveal is not just about condition or mint mark. It involves a mystery error so unusual that even experienced collectors debate its origin, and the value attached to it might completely change what you think a penny can be worth. Now, we arrive at the final coin, and this one is a true classic in the Lincoln Wheat Penny series. The 1944 Lincoln Wheat Penny in extra fine condition. At first glance, this coin looks like a strong survivor from the World War II era. The details are still bold and confident. Lincoln's profile is clear, the hairlines still show definition, and the wheat stalks on the reverse remain sharp and well-formed. In extra fine condition like this, it has that clean, almost fresh from circulation but well-preserved appearance that immediately catches a collector's eye. But what makes the 1944 penny so fascinating is not just its condition, it's the story behind it. During 1944, the United States Mint made a major switch in penny production. Earlier in 1943, pennies were made of steel due to wartime copper shortages. But in 1944, the Mint returned to copper again using recycled shell casing metal from the war effort. That means every 1944 wheat penny carries a direct connection to one of the most important chapters in American history. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Most 1944 wheat pennies are common in circulated condition, and many are still found today in old collections. But even common coins can become valuable when condition is strong. In extra fine condition like this, a regular 1944 penny may bring anywhere from a few dollars up to $20 or more depending on eye appeal and mint mark. But that is only the starting point, because the 1944 penny is one of the most famous coins in the entire Wheat Penny series for one shocking reason: the rare steel error. Some 1944 pennies were accidentally struck on leftover steel planchets from 1943. These wrong metal error coins are among the most legendary Lincoln cents ever discovered. Imagine holding what looks like a normal 1944 penny, but it sticks to a magnet. That single test has changed lives overnight. If a genuine 1944 steel penny is confirmed, values can reach unbelievable levels. We're talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and in top-tier auction examples, even approaching or exceeding $1 million, depending on condition and authenticity. Now, even though the specific coin is extra fine copper as expected, collectors still carefully examine 1944 pennies for other rare mint errors. Things like doubled dies, repunched mint marks, and die cracks can still appear, and even small varieties can increase value significantly. Another important detail is the mint mark. A 1944D or 1944S coin can carry slightly different collector demand depending on condition and strike quality. Sharp strikes with strong wheat detail and minimal wear always bring stronger interest in the collector market. What makes this coin so powerful in the collecting world is simple. It represents abundance and rarity at the same time. Millions were made, yet only a small fraction survive in truly attractive extra fine condition today. And only a microscopic number exist, with major mint errors that transform them into legendary discoveries. So, while this 1944 wheat penny may look ordinary at first, experienced collectors know better. Every detail matters. The surface quality, the strike sharpness, and the possibility of hidden mint mistakes that can completely change its value. And that brings us to the end of today's journey through 5 incredible Lincoln Wheat Pennies. From early 1920s history to wartime mysteries and rare mint errors, these small copper coins continue to prove one thing over and over again. Sometimes the smallest coins carry the biggest secrets. So the next time you see a wheat penny in your change, don't ignore it, because it might just be worth far more than you ever imagined.